Welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show, live from Washington, D.C. at the FAIR 13th Annual Hold Their Feet to the Fire Immigration Radio Row event. We do appreciate the folks at the Federation for American Immigration Reform and here at the Phoenix Park Hotel for having us out to this event this year as we talk illegal immigration and really the impacts illegal immigration is having on this country. And joining us to talk about just another angle of illegal immigration and open borders is Derek Maltz, former special agent with the Drug Enforcement Agency. Derek, welcome to the show. Glad to have you here.
Thank you, Chad. I was born and raised in South Texas. Just kidding.
Well, we're glad. Well, hey, you know what? We're glad to have you. Anywhere in Texas or wherever you're from, we're glad to have you.
I like the state of Texas very much.
Well, and tell folks a little bit about your background first before we get into the things that you've seen and the things that need to be done to counteract the open borders that we have. Tell folks a little bit about your background.
Okay, so real quick, my father was a 30-year dedicated DEA agent and supervisor. He ran the largest and oldest drug task force in Manhattan. And I was pushed into this direction. Quite frankly, I was a kid at a college. I didn't know what I wanted to do. The old man put me in the right direction. I loved every day of my job, 28 years. Fortunately for me, I actually took my father's job in New York City as the chief of the task force. And then 2005, I was promoted to be the head of the Special Operations Division in Washington, which at the time had 9 agencies participating. I was able to grow the place to 30 agencies, including 3 countries and the NYPD, and the primary function was to synchronize the efforts of all the great patriots from law enforcement agencies, intel agencies, and DOD as an example. And so, yeah, I had a really good view of the operations from not just DEA and the drug side, but all the transnational crime cases which are impacting our national security.
How much of those increased within the last, let's say, 20 years?
Well, I mean, we're starting to look at it a little differently. Like in the old days, we looked at terrorism as like these certain groups that had ideologies to destroy the West, all these jihadist, visions. And now we're seeing that these terrorists are actually tapping into the proceeds of crime. So like counterfeiting, drug trafficking, human trafficking, gun running, that's all generating multi-billions of dollars. And basically, the terrorists have realized they need cash to operate. So this is a very, very fruitful, relationship. So we're starting to see a way more convergence of crime, as we say. So it's really like very blurred now. Like there's no such thing as like just a terrorist, in my opinion. They're involved with all these other transnational criminal groups. So we have to work much closer together and work much smarter.
Yeah. Visiting with Derek Maltz here on the Chad Hasty Show. Let's talk about the open borders that we have, the drugs that are flowing into the United States. What kind of impact is that having on this country?
Well, it's a disaster. I mean, this year, 2018 stats will show you that 32,000 Americans died from fentanyl. The fentanyl today is very pure. It's potent. 1 kilogram can kill 500,000 Americans. And basically what we have is that stuff is coming into the country from 2 places, from China and the organized crime over there, and the Mexican terror cartels, as I call them. And the stuff is coming in, and our kids and our people in America don't have any idea what they're taking. They may think they're snorting cocaine. They may be thinking that they have a nice heroin. And it's actually this fentanyl, which is a synthetic opioid, very, very powerful and lethal. So basically, the borders are wide open. They're crossing over through the POEs. They're bringing tractor trailers. They're bringing cargo. Whatever it is, they're getting it into the country, and they're also crossing over the land borders, the wide open borders in your state, your beautiful state. And speaking of Texas, I mean, Juarez is one of the most dangerous cities in the world, and it's just south of El Paso, right, on the other side of the border, not too far from Lubbock. And so, yeah, we have a really dangerous situation down there, and people are not paying attention.
Well, and one thing with our sheriff, Kelly Rowe, he's come on this radio station numerous times and talked about the drug trade and drug use is going up in Lubbock, and it's all being run by the cartels, and we're seeing that throughout the United States that the cartels are running all of this.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Chad, it's not just the U.S. The cartels are in over 50 or 70 countries now. The Sinaloa cartel, the Jalisco cartel, they are actually not only pushing this poisonous fentanyl, but let's not forget about methamphetamine. They have industrial labs now in Mexico that are producing thousands and thousands of pounds every day. As an example, my buddies went down there recently from law enforcement. They saw a lab that was just dismantled. It was producing 7 tons of meth every 3 days.
Wow.
Now, you talk to the average Americans around this country, meth is their issue, right? You know, heroin, yeah, and fentanyl's getting a lot of news and stuff, but it's really, really bad, and it's getting worse because there's no sense of urgency. There just seems to be a lack of understanding of how dangerous this is.
Yeah. You and I were talking before we went on the air about something that I've been in favor of for a long time. I'm so glad that you're in favor of it too, and that is classifying these cartels as terror organizations.
Right.
I don't understand why the U.S. hasn't done it yet.
Well, it's real simple. You want to know why? The public doesn't notice, but I'll tell you why. Because agency heads are worried about turf battles between the agencies. That's why. They're not really focused on saving lives. They're worried about their own little, their self-serving preservation, I call it. So basically, if the Mexicans were, cartels were designated as terrorists, then the FBI technically would have the lead, which I hate that word, on all terror cases, which means the DEA and Homeland Security, others would have to like kind of work a little closer, which is fine, but that's not reality.
Right.
When you talk about control, power, dominance, it doesn't work. You have to have a unity of effort. Everyone is equal. Everyone has the same contributions because we have a lot of experts in all the agencies. Here's the bottom line. If you designate them as terrorists, you can use the power of the United States laws and authorities and experts to go after them in a way that they need to be gone after because they're killing our citizens at alarming rates. One other thing on this topic, I testified recently in Ohio. The House in Ohio passed our resolution 95-1 in a bipartisan vote because they recognize, like Ohio's ground zero, people are dropping every day. They need to step up the game. So I applaud the House members in Congress in Ohio. So we're hoping that the U.S. Congress they wake up and they stop with the stupid, impeachment and there's all this nonsense, Russian collusion, delusion, and they go and they focus on what's killing Americans and their families and the communities that are suffering.
Focus on the real issues.
Exactly.
And we were also talking about some of the violence that we're seeing across this country that is much different than it was years ago. Talk about that.
Okay, so let's talk about it. So you ever heard of the stew maker? The stew maker was very proud of dumping hundreds of bodies into pits of acid in Mexico so they dissolve, so they find bones, right? So Mexico's on record now for 35,000 murders this year, all-time high. But what a lot of people don't know is the disappearances. So many people are disappearing because they chop them up, they throw them in the acid or whatever they do. They're dismembering people. They're using chainsaws, they're using grenades, they're blowing up people. They're doing things that terrorists do. And that's why we need to step it up. They have armored cars, they have RPGs, they have man pads. All these things you see in Afghanistan, Iraq are happening just south of our border. So it's very, very dangerous if we continue to do the same old thing. What does Einstein say, right? You continue to do the same old thing and expect different results. It's insanity, right?
Yeah.
Well, just talk to the families that are losing all their loved ones, and we need to step up the game.
And we're seeing that violence spill over into this.
Oh, yeah,
we're
absolutely.
seeing the cartel violence spill over.
You know what? One of my favorites, I say favorites because it's a weird thing, but taking a human and duct taping them from head to toe and pouring gasoline on them and lighting them on fire and then bragging about it during a conversation with an informant, how we burnt them to a crisp, and then laughing. I have like major issues with that. This is really unbelievable stuff. And they look in Juarez, they're dismembering people and throwing the body parts all over. They're taking heads and they're putting them in ice coolers and sending the heads to rivals to intimidate them. They're killing judges. They're blowing up buildings. They're blowing up cars. It's everything terrorists do. But our politicians and our State Department, they have to be very politically savvy, right? This is a trading partner, which is important. And I agree. But let's be honest with the public.
Yeah, absolutely. How dangerous is MS-13 in this country? Because when the president talks about MS-13, the media sort of goes, oh, come on.
Okay.
They're not that big
of
a deal.
Well, let's go by their motto, right? Rape, kill, and control, okay? And look at what happened in July out in California. There was 19 out of 22 MS-13 guys arrested. They were doing medieval-style murders. As an example, cutting the heart out of somebody, taking a machete and chopping up people. Look what they're doing on Long Island in New York, my hometown. They're chopping up little kids, 16 years old. I mean, this is stuff we've never seen in the history of the country. But guess what? It's happening at alarming rates now because they're coming into this country in the caravans, and thank God the president stepped up with these creative ways to push back and get people. Like the apprehension numbers have gone down to like record lows now, right? Yeah. Since May, 144,000 down to 64,000 last month. So the president is doing everything he can, but he doesn't have any support.
Yeah, and so how do we get, obviously voting and getting them some more support, but how do we get to that place where we can label these cartels terror organizations, freeze their assets, and do what we need to do? How do we get to that point?
Well, for one, you have to get the president the right information. And so right now it's very filtered with the politics. So there's a lot of people, as you know, even in the administration, that are looking to take him out. Mm-hmm. They don't like him. They're intimidated. They're insecure. Yeah. They're jealous. The guy is a leader, and he's taking care of our country, and they don't like that. It's sad, but it's true. It's not just the Democrats. It's the Republicans that are in there, too. And so basically you have to get him the right information because he'll make a decision. He's very decisive. But right now he's got so many other issues he's dealing with. This is not like the top of his priority list. He's trying to stay in office because they're trying to destroy him, which is absolutely another crime.
Yeah. Derek Maltz, appreciate your time today. I know you're a busy man. You're walking around and talking to a lot of stations today. We appreciate you spending some time with us.
Thank you for pushing the message. Very, very important.
Absolutely. We'll get you back on soon.
Anytime.
All right. That's great. Derek Maltz here on the Chad Hasty Show, live from Washington, D.C. at fairs. Hold their feet to the fire. We're definitely doing that here at the Immigration Radio Row. Chad Hasty Show, KFYO.